There's no division as between the interest of Mexico and Canada in committing ourselves to the trilateral trade agreement. And we are both having conversations with counterparts in the United States, and will continue to do so over the next number of months.
CUSMA no more. Canada-U.S. Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc was in Mexico City this week as part of a massive trade delegation, insisting Canada and Mexico want to preserve the trilateral deal. Meanwhile, another American news outlet, this time the New York Times, is reporting U.S. President Donald Trump is instead mulling walking away from the Canada-U.S.-Mexico agreement entirely as a review of the deal approaches. And all that's happening as the Supreme Court rules against Trump's so-called fentanyl tariffs on Canada. New data from Nanos research, meanwhile, shows a strong majority of Canadians do believe it's important to preserve CUSMA. Here to dig into all of that, Business Council of Canada President and CEO Goldy Hyder. Next to him, that's the founder and chief data scientist at Nanos Research, and of course CTV's Pollster of record as well, Nick Nanos. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you. Thank you very much for making the time. Goldy, you commissioned some special research from Nick around CUSMA in itself and the view Canadians hold of it. Why did you want that research?
Well, we're in February 2026, and by July 1st of 2026, these three governments are intending to review and renew the USMCA. There's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of emotion out there. And I've always lived life here in Canada feeling that never underestimate the collective wisdom of Canadians, that they're a smart group of people. They can separate emotion from facts, emotion from reason. And I think, as Nick will get into, the survey has shown that Canadians are actually doing exactly that. They understand the value of this agreement, not for business, not for countries, not for trade negotiators, for themselves.
So what is the headline out of what you found, Nick?
Well, you know, the headline is that Canadians still overwhelmingly kind of recognize that trade has had a positive impact, not just for the Canadian economy writ large, but for them individually, and that the Canada-U.S.-Mexico agreement is important to kind of the financial success and the economic success of Canadians. And you know, to Goldy's point, yes, of course people are upset when they hear certain things that are said that comes out of the White House. But at the same time, what's clear from the survey is that they want an agreement, they have recognized the importance of free trade, and that they're stuck in this place between kind of what I'll say, the emotion, the head and the heart, so to speak, on this issue.
I want to just really quickly follow up on that, because what I thought was very interesting was, in particular, the numbers in the way that they show Canadians actually feel like this deal is good for their own financial well-being. Yeah. Because part of what made Trump's message around renegotiating NAFTA in his first term so successful was, I think, drawing on a sentiment among many Americans that the notion of free trade, these big type of agreements, had left them behind and hadn't been to their financial success. He was able to very much leverage that sentiment and use it to drive forward with negotiations. This strikes me as a very different sentiment among Canadians.
Yeah, you know what? The reality is that the last year has been a free trade 101 course for average Canadians. They've understood the importance and learned about the automotive industry, about the energy sector, about the high-tech sector, and how our economies work together for the benefit of both countries. So maybe that's the silver lining. The silver lining here, that now Canadians really understand the importance of the binational relationship. It doesn't mean that they're happy with what they're hearing in terms of the rhetoric, but they now, at a much higher level, understand how this integration and how the two economies work together.
I imagine that also provides, Goldy, the government with a unique position in feeling such a unique level of backing from the population. I'm not even sure it was at this level in the first go-around.
Well, I think, again, shows you how smart Canadians are. They know when something's good for them. The number is 86%, by the way. 86% of Canadians are saying the USMCA's review and renewal is important to them. Yeah. To them, which is so important, because what they're saying is my jobs, you know, my well-being, my kids' future is contingent upon all the prosperity that has been created over the last number of decades. Nothing is perfect. Everything can be improved. They acknowledge that. But what this does is, I think it emboldens our Prime Minister and the team. The good news is we may not know the results of the hockey game when we're taping this, but we do know who's playing on Team Canada when it comes to this review and renewal. You've got the Prime Minister, you've got Minister LeBlanc, but now you have Ambassador Wiseman, and you have Janice Charette in her role as the chief trade negotiator. Our team is set. The starter's pistol is going to be going off. The puck's going to be dropped. Whatever analogy you want. Now they can go in there knowing that Canadians value this agreement, and they're expecting them to do as they've said they will do, which is work diligently towards the review and renewal of the agreement.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, and you know, the thing is that for the negotiation that will take place, for it to succeed, Canada cannot show weakness. So perhaps another way to look at the strategy of the federal government right now, which is resilience, right? Building jobs in Canada, diversifying trade arrangements right around the world, is that it is both a good negotiating tactic with the Americans because they know that we're doing our due diligence on this, but at the same time, it is like a plan B. I think the reality is, I don't know what you think, Goldy, you know, plan A is to have certainty within North America and to have that work and to kind of build out our economy from there and our international trade. And, you know, that's plan A. Plan B is to not have a USMCA agreement and to kind of recalibrate completely.
Yeah, I would say it's not either or, right?
Yeah.
What we're talking about here all the way through is what I would describe as a US plus strategy. We're fortunate. We live in North America, the richest continent in the world. We have a great trading agreement. We have a process which needs to review and renew. Business has been saying very clearly, make it trilateral, make it timely, and get the tariff exemptions right. We can't be having tariffs on things that are CUSMA compliant or USMCA compliant. And I think Canadians are also saying, though, strengthen Canada. Don't ever let us be beholden to our single economy as much as we are. We will always trade with the United States. We will always have a relationship because of geography and math. But for government, it's important to say, I want this agreement also because it helps me attract capital into my country. That capital comes to be able to access the North American market, not just a single market of 40 million people. That's an important point.
I do want to follow up and ask you, though, because we have seen so much reporting lately about the president's own posture. Who knows at this point how much of that is a negotiating strategy? A lot of what Trump does is largely about negotiating. But, you know, he also has people there, for example, like the USTR, who has been involved previously as the chief of staff to Robert Lighthizer, who, you know, doesn't necessarily view the strength of CUSMA in the same way that people in our country would, like as a trilateral agreement. When you are in Mexico with the businesses you represent, or you talk to them about the future of CUSMA, how worried or optimistic are they about it remaining largely intact, Goldy?
First of all, the general consensus is if this president wanted to have withdrawn from the USMCA, it would have happened already. They came in there with a shock and awe campaign 13 months ago. They were ready to do a lot of things. It did not happen, and we don't believe it will happen. More importantly, the USTR doesn't believe that's the direction where things are going. We continue to meet them. I'll be back again next month to meet with the USTR, and what they tell us is, look, we're negotiating with Mexico on the issues that are Mexico-US specific. We want to negotiate with US and Canada, and you're now saying, as we are saying, do it at the table at the USMCA review and renewal. Those things have to merge. There's no way to expel a member of the USMCA. You can withdraw if you like, but you can't have Canada, so US and Mexico run off on their own. We're in a trilateral trading agreement, and all three sides are saying we're going to work towards a timely review and renewal. If it doesn't happen, Vashi, what happens is we fall into what's called annual reviews. That will permeate more uncertainty. It will cause economic harm to all three countries. Even the United States of America will suffer if we don't have clarity on what the rules of engagement are for businesses to deploy capital. We still are asking for July 1, but if it's not July 1, it can't go much past July 1 and certainly can't go into next year.
That'll be interesting to see how that, because we've heard different indications on that.
Well, the danger, Vashi, is it's actually good for America even in the short term because they're the bigger economy. They will get the capital, right? But it's not good for Canada and Mexico, and that's why we need to make sure no question of withdrawal, no question of bilaterals, one agreement, and what Canadians are saying is we agree.
Last question to you, Nick.
Yep.
We agree, but I imagine there are parameters around that agreement, right? That Canadians hold certain things dear. We've already seen some concessions that didn't necessarily materialize in a change in the Americans' position. How important are certain things to Canadians in these negotiations?
Well, you know, the thing is I think we have to realize that Canadians want to have a trade agreement. The big question is how far are they willing to go? I don't think the nuts and bolts is really a problem because Canadians understand the importance of the trade agreement. I think it's going to be the emotion. The emotion is going to be politically the trickiest part of the negotiation because no one wants to come out of a negotiation looking like a loser, whether it's the Americans or Canadians. And I think it's going to be critical to frame it as a win-win for the Canadians, the Americans, and the Mexicans.
Okay, I'm going to leave it on that note. Thank you very much, both of you, for making time for the conversation. Goldy Hyder and Nick Nanos.